I believe every person has a right to basic knowledge of how to optimize their mind, body, and spirit. Here, I bring to you influential individuals and ideas to help you live a more healthy, fulfilling life. I'm Julie Fouché, and I'd like to welcome you to Pursuing Health. Welcome to episode 28 of Pursuing Health. As we're in the thick of the 2016 regional season, I get to sit down with James Hobart, who not only has a law degree and serves as a full-time flow master on CrossFit seminar staff, but who also has one of the most impressive CrossFit Games competition resumes I've come across to date. James has competed in the games every single year since 2010 as either an individual or on a team, and he's won the Affiliate Cup as a member of two separate teams, CrossFit New England and CrossFit Mayhem Freedom. This year, he will again be competing on CrossFit Mayhem Freedom's team, and I was excited to catch up with him and pick his brain a little bit to hear his insights about teaching and competing in CrossFit, as well as what drives him to always make himself and those around him better. Before we get started, I have a few quick reminders. First of all, if you're enjoying the podcast, please head over to iTunes to subscribe and consider giving it a 5-star rating. Please also head to my website, juliefouché.com. There you can enter your email to stay in the loop with the podcast and everything else I'm doing with my bi-weekly newsletter. I'm also always looking for inspiring stories to share. So if you or someone you know has used lifestyle to overcome a serious health challenge, please send your story to me at info@juliefouché.com. I'll select some to share on future episodes. If you're interested in training with me, check out my program through Beyond the Whiteboard. This is the actual training I do now 5 days per week, 1 hour per day, scheduled out for you minute by minute from warm-up to cool-down. For more info or to try the program out yourself, just visit beyondthewhiteboard.com/juliefouché. So with that, let's get started here on episode number 28 of Pursuing Health, featuring the one and only James Hobart. Welcome back to Pursuing Health. I'm here with James Hobart, my partner in crime for the demo video or demo pictures which you just did this morning. But James is another person. I interviewed Pat Sherwood a few episodes ago, and I think you're another person who has a huge spectrum of experience in the CrossFit community and have experienced it from a variety of different lenses. And so I think I'm excited to hear some of your insight and things that you have to share on the podcast. But maybe we can start with just how you got started in CrossFit, how you found it, where you were at in life.
Cool. Yeah. No, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
That's a lot to live up to. I think my story of finding CrossFit, I don't think was all that spectacular. For a lot of people, especially before the Open and before it started to show up on ESPN, I just kind of found it on the internet, and a friend who I was working out with at the time, we were really into the whole kettlebell thing.
Okay.
And he was like, it was just one of those like, hey, I found this thing. It's called CrossFit. I think you'd really like it. And so we started just following the website and not really knowing how to navigate like the for time and the, chasing the intensity piece. And so we eventually, this buddy of mine, Mike Bazillion, who now owns an affiliate in Massachusetts where my mom goes to CrossFit now. So it's like kind of full circle. But it was like a couple months into doing CrossFit, we were like, we got to learn more about this. And we drove 9 hours out to Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Right.
To Hyperfit and did the level 1 there.
And you were only a couple months in at that point.
Yeah, we weren't into it. Yeah, like probably I found it in the middle of 2007. So I don't know, 6 months into it maybe. Of like, and probably only one of those months actually was like CrossFit. The rest were just kind of not understanding how to do the workouts. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And what were you doing prior to that, workout wise?
We were. I wouldn't say it was as like. We were doing. I don't know how like sports-based calisthenics. Like circuit training and routines. My buddy Mike Bazillion, who I met and who got me into CrossFit, he was training me when I was playing lacrosse in high school, and then we stayed friends, and I kind of turned into a gym rat when I got to college because I stopped playing sports, and that's kind of how I got more into it. It was just like it was the competitive piece that really drew me into it, and it was funny at the time. like no one knew about it, and then you'd go to the gym and you'd see the one other guy who like took rings, gymnastic rings
Right.
out of his bag. You're like, that guy's a
He
CrossFitter.
does CrossFit.
And then he was your new best gym friend.
Right.
Um,
I would always, for a little while in med school, I would go to the school gym to work out if I didn't have time, and you would always look around. They actually had pretty good equipment
yeah.
and bumper plates and everything. You see someone with nanos, or you see someone with who's sneaking the rings in the gym, you know, okay, maybe I can work out with them.
Yeah, like I would just always look for who was bare at that time, and you know what, that was like when no one was wearing shoes, because those were before Reebok was making
Right.
shoes for CrossFit. So like who was in board shorts, because CrossFit somehow made it cool to work out in board shorts, and then who was barefoot, and there was always those guys I would try and go talk to. So
Very cool. And so you went to your level 1 seminar, and then it wasn't too long after that that you started on seminar staff yourself, was it?
actually, it was a pretty long time after that. It was sort of like the distance between level 1 and seminar staff was enormous for me, and the level 1 was fantastic, and I think in the same way it is for a lot of people, it was life-changing, but I didn't really notice it yet. You know, I was like excited to do everything and excited to take the information I had learned there. You know, that's where I met Adrian Bosman. Who else was at our level 1? Joe DeGain, who is on seminar staff now. He's one of the course overseers there. He was an intern at the time.
Wow.
John Gilson, who would go on to Run Again Faster, he was there. And just a bunch of other people. And that time, Boz had blue hair. Like, it was just a different, and, you know, I had, like, the schedule. It was just a different world. Still amazing. But anyway, I left that, went back to college, and I still had 2 more years of undergrad, maybe. And then after that, I was planning on going to law school. So I had no aspirations to be involved with fitness, the fitness world, other than, like, personal gain and just liking CrossFit and competing in it. And so I wouldn't find out about, like, chasing the seminar staff goal and realizing that it was sort of a dream and passion of mine until later in 2010.
Okay.
2000, yeah.
So at that point, you're in law school already.
Yeah, at that time I had moved down to law school and had again caught up with John Gilson, who was working on seminar staff at the time, and Eva Claire Sinkowski, who is now has a whole, I guess she's a project manager, but also a flow master on seminar staff. And they were both coaching at CrossFit Boston. I was going there to like work out and work part-time as a coach while I was getting through law school. And that's really how I kind of found out about, you know, my interest in fitness and coaching people was way bigger than just kind of like some extra, you know, like rent money and a way to spend my extra time when I wasn't in class.
Okay. And so it was during law school that you started working towards seminar staff, and then eventually you came to graduate from law school and decide, hey, this is what I want to do full time. So tell us about that decision and that transition.
Yeah, I got a very patient mother because it was like, and I hated the first year of law school, but I think everybody does.
I've heard that from multiple people.
Yeah, it was I literally every day for me was like a call home or like a text to a friend was like, I think I'm gonna quit today, and they were like, nah, just stick it out for a week, and then a week would turn into a month. But anyway, once I graduated law school, by that time, I think I had just recently, it's probably spent just under a year on seminar staff. I was coaching pretty consistently at some of the local affiliates in Boston. And I was like, I finished law school, and they tell you in law school the whole time that they're like, you guys are here to be lawyers, you know, and you're going to be great lawyers. And that never made sense to me, but it should have, because that's why else would you go to law school? And I graduated, and I was like, oh, crap, I don't want to be a lawyer. And I was lucky enough at the time where I was able to do some work behind a desk at Reebok, because they're located just outside of Boston, and that was when the CrossFit and Reebok partnership started. And then that's when I had come on to seminar staff. And it was a lot of like right place, right time kind of thing for me. But it was very nice because I didn't want to be a lawyer, but I had found this new passion in my life. Like teaching people how to improve their lives through fitness was literally the best thing that ever happened to me. And like I just never knew that it was happening. So it was really now in retrospect, it was really sweet.
Definitely. And I think that's something that's good for people to see, that even if you invest time and resources in law school, you still at the end of the day have to follow your heart and do what makes you happy and excites you the most, gets you out of bed in the morning. So, and
that's kind of the joke, like, you know, people are like, oh, don't you feel like you wasted your education? And I'm like, well, no, not at all, because if I didn't go to law school, I never would have been in Boston. I never would have been coaching CrossFit. I never
Mm-hmm.
would have met the people that I met inside of CrossFit. So, and law school also gave me a lot of skills that I think helped me as a trainer. Tons of skills to help me as a trainer.
Certainly, yeah.
So I don't regret that at all. And maybe someday, that's a decent plan B.
It's not bad to fall back on a law degree.
Yeah, if CrossFit's, I wake up tomorrow morning and somehow it's just all gone, we can go back to the law thing.
That's good.
Yeah, that's how I got here.
So with seminar staff, now you are a flow master. You've traveled all over the world, working every single weekend. Tell us a little bit about that role, and maybe like the top 2 or 3 things that you think you've learned from that maybe you didn't expect to.
Oh, running courses on seminar staff, like it's really special. I remember thinking growing up that, like all the jobs, like I want to be a teacher and I want to be a firefighter.
Mm-hmm.
I always admired my teachers, but I also felt that their job was sort of thankless in the sense that they were putting all this effort into like educate us and make us better. And for the most part, this was like in high school, and I was thinking about this. I was like, high school students are turds, or at least I was. And it's like I would see how much stress we would put our teacher through, and so I was like, well, maybe teaching's not it for me. And I kind of went through this, like, struggle with this mentally all through college. The greatest blessing of seminar staff is being able to teach to a captive audience.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because I think through the years of seminar staff, people coming into seminars early on, there was like they wanted to be convinced that CrossFit was good, so I think there were more struggles early on, and there are good stories about that. But now it's like every weekend I walk in there, and there's always maybe 1 or 2 people who are a little shy or have this preconceived notion of what the weekend is like. But 99% of them are so happy to be there and learn, and they hang on every word. And there really is nothing more rewarding than teaching to a captive audience. And of all the traveling I've been lucky enough to do, I've never left anywhere and been like, wow, like everybody in Beijing stinks. All the CrossFitters in Argentina are just bums. It's like everywhere you leave, you're like, wow, those guys are great. I can't wait to go back. So lucky to have been here. And I don't know I can't put my finger on why that happens. What it is about the community that it is the way it is. But I think that's my favorite part about seminar staff. And that's the biggest thing you learn is that there are good people everywhere who are concerned about changing people's lives. We've all just decided we want to use fitness to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
Very good.
that's probably like, I don't know if that really summarizes the job, but that's how I feel about the job.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I think it is. I know I obviously don't work as many seminars as you. I work one here and there, but every weekend that I leave, I'm so inspired just by the people that you meet and the passion that they bring for what they do. It's always really invigorating. And so I can understand why doing it every single weekend, that's still your favorite part. So
Yeah.
very cool. So not only you have sort of the seminar staff view of the CrossFit community, and then you had sort of working for Reebok and seeing that partnership between Reebok and CrossFit. But you also, I think, have probably one of the most well-rounded competitive experiences as well.
Yeah.
So not only competing as an individual multiple times at the games, but competing on 2 separate teams, winning the Affiliate Cup with both teams, with CrossFit New England and then Mayhem. So can you talk a little bit just about how you have evolved as a competitor?
Oh, yeah. Again, it was, I think, like a lot of things that have happened over the last 10 years in CrossFit for everybody, a lot of unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
So when they first, I saw the 2007 games, kind of followed it online, at least what they had put out at that time and what they could put out when it first started. Same thing, watched the Every Second Counts movie in 2008, and a friend of mine was like, hey, in 2009, I was like, hey, I think you should do some local competitions. I feel like you'd be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, whatever, I had,
Yeah.
whatever, I gave it a shot. And I really liked competing. I didn't do terribly well. And at that time, they weren't running the open. They were running like these individually run, I don't know, sectionals, I guess, all over the country. And they all had separate programs. Like they kind of just picked a director who was usually like some experienced affiliate on the area. And he ran it, and he ran the weekend. And so in 2009, went and did that. Ended up, where did I finish? Did I win? I think I ended up winning in 2009 the sectional in the Northeast, and that's how I made it to the games the first time. Went to the games, did terrible. It was out at the ranch in Aromas, but had a lot of fun, and it was really cool. And then next year made it back in 2010 as an individual. Did a little bit better, but still had a huge learning curve. And then in 2011, I took some time off from competing and training.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I had moved a little further outside of Boston and just started competing with CrossFit New England and Ben Bergeron and his crew out there, because I saw that like Ben was really big on it at the time. He would always say, he's like, hey, if I had a running club, we would compete in running. He's like, I feel like I want to try and get everybody, if they want to compete, to compete. And so there were a lot of athletes who were at that gym who wanted to compete. And so I liked being there and training with them. And again, it was kind of like slowly one thing led to another. And ended up competing with them on the team. And that was the first year that we won the Affiliate Cup with CrossFit New England. And then
Not a bad first team experience.
yeah, it was surreal, really, really cool. And especially since then, with how, even in 2009, 2011, I hope, because CrossFit's so huge now, there's almost 300,000 people doing the Open. I hope people get a chance to or at least get bored enough sometimes or interested enough to go back and go through the journal and see how far it's come. Because even the first year in 2010, we went to the Home Depot Center and there was maybe 6 people sitting in the stands, and there were 2,000 seats empty, right?
Yes, a lot of empty seats.
And and then now to see how it's sold out and it's on ESPN is really cool. And then since then, competed on team a couple more times, and then once as an individual in 2014. And to answer, I guess I don't know the specific question, how has it changed and what have I learned? There's always more growing to do. There's always a bigger fish. And now it's just you have to put in the time. It's amazing to me how fit everyone has gotten or become, and how much time they have. I mean, you know this better than anyone. You were saying it today. It's like even now you realize, I don't know how I had enough time to compete beforehand, but how much time is required to be a competitive CrossFitter.
Absolutely.
It's pretty incredible. And my favorite thing I've been able to see is knowing some of the top athletes, knowing people like you, knowing people like Rich or Austin Malleolo, people who have been to the games multiple times and been at the tip of the spear. It's mind blowing and how much work and effort that has to go into it to make it happen.
It is. A lot of different pieces have to fall into place, and a lot of work and focus on that one task all year round. And you recently wrote an article in the CrossFit Journal too, A Deft Dose of Volume.
Yep.
And so maybe this sort of piggybacks off this idea of building up into volume. And in that article, you gave a prescription or a guideline for people to slowly increase their volume, or at what point they might be ready to start adding volume in. What has been, as you've evolved as a competitor and as you've seen the community evolve, how has your volume changed, or what differences have you noticed since you've added more volume into your training?
Well, the increase in volume for me as a competitive athlete, I think one really important thing to understand is there was a much bigger piece of this in that article beforehand, but I cut it out. Is in order to increase that volume, it's I had to stop doing other things. It's I needed all of the energy possible to compete or train and then recover. And so, the fact that I travel, the bulk of my work is on the weekends, and the rest of the work I can do from home at a computer, I think that's, what makes it possible for me to do that extra volume. And I think a lot of people who are competing at the games or regional level probably have some sort of similar circumstance. And now I don't want to insult all the parents out there who are making it to the games
right.
and, working a 9-to-5 job. But it's much harder to increase volume and commit more time to the gym if you still have all of these other things in your life that you have to give a lot of energy to. And for me, I would say once you have that piece established, it was kind of a slow gain of increasing volume and seeing. I think for me it was as long as I was mentally eager to be in the gym and I continually saw results, I would kind of tinker with adding more volume or less volume. And of course there are things that make that easier, whether you have somebody like you were saying earlier who writes a program for you, or having a really good training partner who you can chase and keeps you motivated. I think those are all little gems that can help you move along.
Absolutely. What inspired you to write that article?
The article about volume, gosh, I don't. It's probably because it's a really big soapbox issue for a lot of us, and I do think it's really, well, the simple answer is the amount of questions we got about adding volume to your programming at both the level 1 and level 2.
Okay.
And sometimes I feel like it comes from a couple of places. I think sometimes people will just want to say like, hey, is it okay if I want to spend the day in the gym and work out? And Pat Sherwood and I talked about this a lot for a while, and he was like, well, if somebody just is having fun and they're not getting hurt and they have all day to hang out in the gym and train, he's like, who am I to say they shouldn't do it? But I also think on top of that, I think there is sort of a conception looking at games athletes, regional levels athletes, that in order to get fitter, we have to do more. And the cocktail hasn't changed. And for me, this didn't become really apparent until my mom got into CrossFit. And it's one of those things where it's like, it sounds like you're bragging, but you speak to what you know.
Mm-hmm.
My mom started CrossFit when she was 54 years old. She's always walked and done yoga. And every affiliate out there has a story like this.
Mm-hmm.
But she came into CrossFit slowly. It was almost like just through osmosis. I really tried never to push her into it, but deep in the my heart, I was like, oh gosh, I hope she makes and does CrossFit. And watching her grow through CrossFit, she was a good mover. She learned things pretty quickly, but she wasn't getting the results from the intensity that I wanted her to get. And I would always ask her, like, oh, you can go faster, you can do more weight, or you can do this. Like, go do this workout. Right. And she was just like, nope, I'm going to do my own thing and get better. And she's slowly gotten better. Mm-hmm. She did the open this year as prescribed.
Wow.
And that really made me realize that, like, constantly varied functional movements, execute at high intensity, it works. It works 20 years ago. It works now. One workout a day, rest a couple days a week. Have fun and enjoy it and track your progress, and it's going to work for the rest of your life, regardless of, I think, who you are and what your current capacity is. And I think it's always good for us to have that reminder of, like, look, you still don't have to do more in order to get better. You just have to do less better. Mm-hmm. And I guess that was my motivation. It was a really nice reminder, and I want people to always remember that. As long as you live, follow the program and its basic protocol, and you will get fitter, and you'll spread your GPP out, and you'll stay healthy. And the most important thing is you'll be able to apply your fitness outside of the gym, because let's face it, we won't always be, those of us and those that are competing at the regionals and games, that won't always be what you're doing. At the end of the day, it's like, when I'm 60 years old, can I get up and out of a chair by myself, and can I chase my grandkids around and have fun with my friends when I work out? Mm-hmm. And it's just nice to remember that, I think.
Right. And having the patience to realize, okay, just because I see these people who are competing making progress every single year doesn't mean I need to make that same progress at that same rate.
Yeah.
I have my whole life to sort of reach that peak of fitness for myself. And I think that's probably the hardest part, I know, for myself and for other people, is just having the patience to say, okay, as long as I'm improving, it doesn't have to be by 10 pounds. It can be by a half a pound, 1 pound, whatever.
Yeah, a little bit here and there. And it's easy to lose sight of with, like, how exciting the games are. And the thing I love most about the Open is, like, even if you finish 28,000th in the world, it's like you're so happy to beat the guy who is 28,000th and won.
Right.
And I love how it makes people so crazy, but it's easy to get caught up in, like, all year, like, I need to do more just to train for the Open. Well, we're not doing CrossFit for the Open.
Right.
There's, for probably all of us, there's a bigger reason why we're doing it.
Absolutely. It's a fun time of year, and it definitely brings out the best in people, but at the end of the day, that's not the reason why. Yeah. If the Open wasn't here, we would still be doing CrossFit.
Absolutely, yeah. The world would go, it's funny saying that now, but yeah, the world would go on without the Open. But no, it is great. So.
And I've seen a lot of similar things in my family. We talked a lot about when our moms both started around the same time, and seeing similar things in my family. And my mom has had her own setbacks as well. She had to stop because she had a couple surgeries and things like that. But now she's back into it. And same thing with my sister, who I never wanted to push into CrossFit. She was never she played volleyball growing up and was competitive there, but never was one to really go and work out on her own or to push herself. And slowly, I think once she saw the games, or she came to the games and saw the environment there, she slowly started going. And for her, it was the same thing. similar to your mom, where she'd be like, oh, I've done enough for today.
Yeah.
I don't need to push myself any harder. And now she's at a point where this year she's almost beating me on open workouts.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how did you get here? But it's just that slow, steady progress. And then that fire sort of starts to build too as you continue to improve and get new skills. And it's exciting to see, especially in people that you care about, them get so excited about it too.
Yeah. It's I think it's important for people who never thought they would CrossFit to do it and get involved with it, because I think they're sometimes a better conduit for sharing it with other new athletes, or maybe even athletes and people who need it more. But I always joke when people ask me about volume, they're like, well, what do I do with volume, or what do I do about training, or how do I get my 55-year-old dad or 70-year-old grandmother into CrossFit? And I was like, just slowly. And the games is like beautiful, and I think it like spreads CrossFit the fastest because it is so attractive and flashy. But the people who benefit from it the most are probably not the 20-somethings.
Right.
Like when you're 20, you're just made to be fit. As long as you're not like killing yourself with diet or something like that. But it's nice for like new people to get involved with the open and how accessible it is, because I think it just helps spread CrossFit to the people who it matters to the most. And that's one of my favorite things about it. And I'm sure you see that's probably a big part of what you do in being able to combine, CrossFit with your medical background and training and schooling. So
yeah, sometimes that's the hardest. The biggest challenge is helping people to understand that CrossFit is much more than the games and that it can be scalable.
Yeah.
But I think one of the coolest moments this year from the open, in that first open workout, when they had the two employees at HGST doing the workout, and I saw so many people then sign up for the open because they saw them doing the workout next to the games athletes. And so that was really neat. I think that's what it's all about. It's getting the average person to put themselves out there doing the open or walking into the gym, because sometimes that's the hardest part, is the first time you walk in.
Yeah, no, that was really cool.
Really Any other advice? Say you're doing CrossFit, you are crazy about CrossFit, drinking the Kool-Aid, and you just want your parents or your friends to start doing it too. What do you think is the best thing that you can do to introduce someone to CrossFit?
Buy a PVC pipe. The program, well, let me say this. We really, I believe now, probably more than ever in the last almost, 9 years that I've been doing CrossFit and learning about CrossFit and coaching it, is that we're 100% born to do these movements. They're a part of our lives, and any quality of movement can be improved. And I think the PVC pipe is such an important tool, because there really is no loading there. You can still teach movement patterns, and it maintains at the risk of injury because of the functional part of the movement. It maintains that the risk of injury is so super low. There's really no movement that you couldn't teach to anyone with a PVC pipe, and I think that's, go out and get one. I don't know, keep it in your car. That'd be kind of nerdy.
You can keep it in the corner of your house or your room.
Yeah, I think it's good for people to see that, because you keep putting people through warm-ups with PVCs because it makes it look so accessible, and it is. I always cringe a little bit when people say, "Oh, well, we're doing like a CrossFit Light class at our gym." I'm like, no, you're not doing CrossFit Light. You're just following the program and scaling it properly. Right. That's still CrossFit, and it's good to be able to have that skill. I think it's important.
That's a great one.
I don't know.
Buy a PVC pipe.
Yeah.
Perfect. Best advice you could give to someone who is starting CrossFit today?
Best advice to someone who's starting CrossFit: find a buddy. Even if it's someone you don't know, like seek out somebody in the gym who you want to talk to and work with. Just because I think like I said, like for my mom, I think, seeing her, there were definitely parts of the journey that were intimidating. Like she never did things like a back squat or a front squat or a power or squat snatch. And now it's like she talks about the group of women she works out with at the gym. She calls them her alphas. And, like go there and make the goal be to like find a community of people you like to hang out with or find some friends. The fitness thing will happen on its own. That's like inevitable by doing the program, but go in there with the goal of like sharing yourself as a friend and finding a friend. And I think it just makes the ride a whole lot more fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Definitely. And you've, I think, done a really good job. Maybe it's another situational thing, but of always surrounding yourself with training partners and with people who are going to make you a lot better.
Yeah, I'm a good sidekick.
So yeah, how do you, what effect does that have on your training, and how do you seek out those peer groups that are going to bring you up?
Yeah, there's just definitely something to, like I said, like having a buddy is just, there's something really special there. And it's motivating, not just like when you're standing next to them. For some odd reason, your best friend is usually the person you want to lose to last. But there's something really special to that. Find somebody you would hate to lose to and you like to hang out with. That's the ideal training partner, because for every aspect of the training element, it makes it better having that friend there. Whether you're stressed or tired, or whether you are motivated and you want to do another workout, it makes all of that better. And we see that in the gyms every day. Greg has said that for years, men and women will die for points. And, to see your name on the whiteboard above, Susie's name is the best feeling. It's the best feeling ever, and it makes you want to come back for more. How do you find those people? I don't know. You just kind of look around and see who's doing it better than you. And you got to tolerate. I read this really cool book recently called Black Box Thinking. And in it, the author really just talks about the whole book is how do we make it not necessarily comfortable for us to fail, but create an environment where if we do fail, we can learn from that failure and then improve from there. And I think you got to go in kind of with that attitude, like realize that it's okay if you lose. If the goal you're trying to build out of it is like, okay, why did I lose? How can I make myself better? What happens next time kind of deal.
Right.
And, training with guys like Austin Malleolo and training with someone like Rich at CrossFit Mayhem and really all of the athletes down there, there's no I've never had oh, well, I'm on my, 1 month long winning streak. The winning streak lasts one workout and then somebody else beats you.
Right.
And it's definitely something that keeps pushing you to get better.
Right. Yeah. You never want to get too comfortable. Always having that process of, okay, what can I do better? What can I do better?
Yeah.
And having those people. And it's true in anything in life, whether it's working out or whether it's anything else you're doing. So.
But you were kind of an athlete who trained. Didn't you train alone?
I did at times. And I noticed the 1 year where I did train alone a majority of the year was 2014. And I noticed it a lot when I got to the games.
Yeah.
That I just was constantly almost in my own little world.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't, I think that I benefited a lot the years that I did have a training partner. So last year, 2015, I had a training partner that I think brought me to a much higher level than I ever could have been on my own. And a lot of it is those little things. It's like when you're tired and you're in a workout and you don't want to do it, but you can't stand to lose to them and you want to push it a little bit harder, or you're going to stop. You just did your last snatch and they say, hey, why don't you try another one and throw those 2.5s on there? Why not?
Yeah.
It's those things that just happen naturally that over time build up and make you so much better than you ever could be on your own.
Yeah.
So I know that was a huge thing. And this year too, I noticed it too. Now I'm just, training an hour a day, but I have a great group of people that I train with. I'm having more fun than ever. And most days I get to the gym and I'm so tired and I don't want to work out, but I get there and as soon as we start the workout, I'm like, oh, I'll just take my time here. But without a doubt, a minute into the workout, I'm like, oh, these girls are catching up to me. I better speed it up. I better push it. And I'm becoming much fitter than I ever would be if I was just training on my own.
Yeah, I think there's something really special to that. I mean, there's a reason, CrossFit affiliates, have a lot of members and don't only just do one-on-one training sessions. There's something about that group dynamic that's really special and great.
It's so powerful.
So much fun.
So powerful. All right. Well, I want to finish with 3 questions I ask everyone on the podcast.
Oh, boy.
So first one is 3 things that you do on a regular basis that have the biggest positive impact on your health.
3 things that I do that have the biggest positive impact on my health. Well, I would say, honestly, the first thing, and I know maybe it sounds like I'm paying lip service, but the first thing I really try and do is whenever possible, I try and make sure that sugar is not a foundational piece, a staple piece of my diet. Stuff like that, sugar processed foods remain a treat. And it's funny, I was someone who had a lot of allergies, and I noticed that when I don't, and this is anecdotal, but when I don't eat a lot of it, like the allergies aren't there as much. On top of this is kind of a combined answer. On top of that, the biggest thing lately that I've been doing is I cook for myself and my girlfriend a whole lot.
That's great.
And she really likes to eat cleaner foods and unprocessed foods. And so it's been really, really fun for me and a positive impact on my health, just because I'm controlling a lot more of what I do. The food's delicious. I'm learning stuff. I'm screwing stuff up. And so I think that's had a really positive impact.
That's huge. I think that so many people can get into the nitpicky details of nutrition, but if you don't eat processed foods and cook for yourself, those would be the number 1 and number 2 things I think I would recommend if you want to eat healthy and not stress too much about the details.
Yeah, and I was checking out of the grocery store the other day, and the woman was scanning the foods, and it was like apples and asparagus, and I was kind of like watching the screen to see how it all added up, because lately I've been trying to track, what kind of is more expensive or cost effective. And she was like, "Wow, eating healthy is really expensive." And I walked out of the store, and I was kind of thinking to myself, like, "No, it's actually really not." And I think at first making the change takes a little bit of extra work, but it just like anything, like once it becomes habit or once you become good at it, it's involuntary and it just occurs, and it's just as easy as anything else. And so I think lately that's probably been the one thing that's had the biggest impact on my health.
That's a great one.
The second thing I would just say is staying involved with CrossFit. Whether it's I'm driven to do better in competing, and so therefore I make certain lifestyle changes and train in a certain way and eat in a certain way. That has a huge impact on my health and my life. And maybe the third thing would be is share what I've learned with other people. I think because one, that keeps you accountable. You don't want to go tell somebody something if you haven't done it. And 2, when you share with other people, you're always confronted with new challenges of how to stay healthy, or they tell you something that they've been doing that's completely opposite to what you've done, and it's working for them. So you're constantly like learning and learning and looking at it in a new light, and seeing sometimes how simple it is, but also how many different facets there are, or just how much new information is that you can gather on it. I guess those are my 3 things.
That's great.
Yeah.
Second question is one thing that you think would have a big impact on your health, but you just have a hard time implementing it, or you haven't been consistent.
One thing that I think I've been really curious to actually do some blood work, and like mess around with either some diet or training or sleeping variables, and then having a follow-up blood work. I don't know if that would have a huge impact on my health, but I think it would be just another way to paint the picture of it.
Sure.
Just haven't kind of pulled the trigger on it at all.
Right. Just having that data and taking the time to figure out what works best for you.
Yeah.
That's it definitely. But again, takes the time and planning up front to make it happen.
Yeah.
Okay, last question is, what does a healthy life look like to you?
A healthy life looks like, to me, I think it looks like quality of life. And, obviously I'm pretty heavily influenced by what we talk about at the Level 1 seminar. And that is, the ability to live independently. And on top of that, be free of sickness and disease, but not just be free of sickness and disease, have that quality of life piece. I think that's what a healthy life looks like to me, because if you have that, you can then go do all the other things that you'd like to do. Whether it's chase your grandkids around or mountain bike on the weekends. I mean, activity is obviously a huge part of that, but I will say this, the least I know is that an unhealthy life is a sedentary one. Over the last 9 years I've been involved in CrossFit, I 100% believe now the default setting for getting older is not just to like get fat, fall apart, and die. Like, And I do think a lot of, it's kind of a soapbox thing, but I do think a lot of people believe that. They're like, oh, well, I'm older now, so it's okay to be fat. Or I'm older now, and it's, of course, I'm going to, become, develop osteoporosis or arthritis or high cholesterol. And I think that's unfortunately the conventional thought. But what I've seen in CrossFit and dealing with people now in the fitness industry is that's not the default setting. It's like, yeah, age is going to take a toll. It's what it does, but it can be a happy ride to the finish line.
Right.
It doesn't have to be peak and then straight downhill. So
doesn't have to be a reality that you just accept, but something that, in which I think that it is, just based on the way our society is set up and how a lot of people are working sedentary jobs, living sedentary lives, and the food that we're surrounded with. It just kind of sets you up to accept that as your reality, when in fact it's not the case.
Yeah, and I think we're far more in control of our own health than we think we are. And I think the ability to improve it is much more simple than a lot of us have thought in the past, or the grand majority of people think. And hopefully slowly it does get out there to everyone. And I'm sure you see a lot of that, because I feel definitely in certain medical fields, it's like they always get the worst case scenario.
Right.
And Greg has said this. He said, we want to make swim coaches, not lifeguards. He's like, the doctors, the surgeons. It's like, those guys are the lifeguards. They pull you out of the water when you're drowning. He's like, we want to teach people how to swim so they are less likely to be in that situation of drowning. And
exactly.
And I think that's a nice piece to think about.
And understanding that that's the healthcare system, at least in its current form, is there to save you when you're drowning. And people are starting to realize that and saying, hey, I have to take control of my own life, my own health, because the healthcare system is not there to make me healthy. It's there to catch me when I at my worst, or when I start falling down. So, and hopefully we'll see that changing over the next, decades or so, but at least that's the state that we're in right now. Cool. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to continue to follow CrossFit Mayhem through regionals and the games this year. So good luck. And
good luck to you.
Oh, thank you. I'll see you at regionals.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Yep. Bye. Thank you all so much for tuning into this episode. James always has such great insights to share with the community, and I hope you were able to take something away from our conversation. I know I sure did. We'll both be competing next weekend at the CrossFit Games Central Regional in Columbus, so don't forget to tune in at games.crossfit.com. We are wishing James and his team Mayhem Freedom the very best of luck this season. To make sure you never miss an episode and to receive exclusive content from me, head to my website, juliefoucher.com. There you can subscribe to my email list. Also, don't forget to share your stories. If you or someone you know has used lifestyle to overcome a serious health challenge, please send me an email at info@juliefoucher.com. I'll choose some of these inspiring stories to share here on the podcast in future episodes. Also, if you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe and consider giving the podcast a 5-star rating on iTunes. I always love to hear your feedback, so please leave comments under this post on my website, juliefoucher.com, and share your thoughts on social media with hashtag JFHealth. Thank you again so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time here on Pursuing Health.